Truly indebted to God, and He's the one who has allowed us to be here again, and our time is not up yet, and He's given us another chance so we can redeem ourselves. And this is a unique opportunity that we have to seize, and it's incumbent upon us to actually take advantage of this huge mercy and huge blessing that God has provided for us. So accordingly, we have to be eternally grateful to our Creator for this opportunity. A lot of people today are not here anymore. Their time was up, and they were supposed to leave this world, and their test is over. But God has chosen us again to give us this opportunity, this chance, so we can commemorate Him, and we can remember Him, we can glorify Him constantly. And so all of these are vehicles by which we can actually get closer to God and avoid worshiping idols. Otherwise, if we don't do this, we're going to fall into this trap. And this trap is sort of like a black hole, and we're going to be sucked in for eternal damnation. So we have to be very, very careful. Again, all of our thanks and appreciations are directed to Almighty, the All-Merciful, and so we have to again be grateful to Him eternally. What I wanted to talk to you about is that I wanted to go through this chapter. I talked about this before, but I usually have a tendency to forget. So this is Al-A'la, the Exalted, chapter 87. And so this is a very small chapter. It has 19 verses. And so we go through every verse, and some of the verses are very short in the Quran. And as you see, this was the 7th unofficial surah that was revealed, 8th revealed overall. So at the very beginning of revelation of the Quran, in the this period of time, which was 23 years. So this is the very beginning of the revelation. And so God is telling us, He says, glorify constantly the name of your Lord, the Exalted. Again, I'll go back to this. This is a very important message that God gives us, because this is the only way we can avoid idol worship. If we don't do this, we think that the prophet was some kind of Superman, and he had extraordinary powers that the rest of the groups didn't have it, in spite of the fact that he tells people that I'm just a human being like you. Okay, so if you don't do this, that's the trap you're going to fall into. So it's very important. This is part of that commemorating God frequently. Okay, and so we have to work at it and ask God to help us on this. Things that are belonging to this world are coming secondary to this. They're not important. Okay? If we do not do this, Quran becomes confusing to us. We don't understand it. As I said, and then what happens is we're going to fall into this trap of idol worship, and we set up partners for God. And so we have to be extra careful, and that is that disease of idol worship is going to drive us into hell. So this is what we have to take to heart. So we have to make sure. And this is not, again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to wear your religion on your sleeve and keep saying SubhanAllah, Alhamdulillah, things like that to impress other people. This is not what that is. This is inside your heart, inside your head. Okay? And those are the people who are successful. Because they know that God knows that. What they are thinking about right now, instead of frivolous things. Okay? That's what my point is. And so, who is God? He says, and God says here, who's our Lord? The one who created, then balanced. Okay? The process of creation did not depend on mathematical equations. Okay? This is a very important topic that you have to understand. Okay, all of these stuff that people are talking about, that that somehow mathematical equations apply to what was here before creation, is complete nonsense. God is telling us otherwise. So don't fall into that trap because the guy's from MIT or Oxford or someplace like that. Okay? Don't study those, because that will also take you to some place which is absolutely contradictory to this short verse. This verse tells us very clearly, الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى, the one who created then balanced. Okay? So the equations were inspired into God's creation. And God asked him in chapter 41, he said, come into existence willingly or unwillingly. And they say we come willingly. That means they abided by those mathematical equations. And those mathematical equations, they govern subatomic particles, they cover the galaxies and everything that we see. Okay? Except us, we don't respect the balance that God has created. We thought it was easy. It's not easy. Okay? God says, and he is the one who exactly measures then guided. Okay? So the measurement of everything that we see has a balance to it. Okay? Then all of those things are guided according to God's laws. There's no violation of that. Everything is exactly measured. If there is the slightest imbalance, things go absolutely haywire. If there is a slightest imbalance in your body or in the universe, things will completely come apart. Okay? When God says in the creation of Adam, yes, says, one I balanced him and blew into him from my spirit, then you shall honor him. Okay? So, Adam was created as a balanced creation of God. So any imbalance in human being is going to cause illness. Any imbalance in God's system is going to make it vanish. That's what God says. If anybody else holds it, it's going to vanish. Because they don't respect the balance. Only God can enforce it. The one who brings out the pasture, then he turns it into hay, into dark, dead leaves. Okay? So God tells us that this is just a temporary existence now. It's not going to last forever. You know, we just went through spring. Remember the flowers that came out during the spring? Now they're all gone. It's just a temporary thing. In the fall, everything is going to turn into dark yellow leaves. They're going to fall off the trees. You just see basically the skeleton of the tree or bushes. Now he tells us this. And he says, we will recite to you, therefore do not forget. Okay. And we keep forgetting. Okay. Everything is in accordance with God's will. Nothing can go against God's laws. So the laws that he inspired, it's going to sustain this universe, and nothing can go against it, and that's his will. God says he indeed knows the obvious as well as the hidden. He has the one who has full knowledge of everything. Why? Because he created it. Who else would have it? And God tells us the following. He says that, and we will make it easy for you. Therefore, keep on reminding. That's the mission. Reminding people is the mission. For the reminder may be beneficial. Okay? It may be beneficial. The reminder now exists, this warning, the reminder will be received only by those who are reverent, and avoiding it is the utmost evildoer. Now the sifting process comes up. You see, if there was no message, people would not recognize who the reverend was and who the evildoer was. They were all mixing together. Now the sifting process comes up. God shows his signs. Those who are reverent, they're going to gravitate towards them. The most evildoer is going to avoid it. Doesn't care. Okay? We already know this. That's the usual answer. We already know this. It basically means shut up. Don't tell us anymore. Bismillah, that had 19 letters, that's enough for us. Now, what's going to happen to this guy? He says, this is the one who will enter the great fire. Now, the scary part then, he neither dies therein, nor stays alive. So there's some state of existence that we don't understand. People think that people are either dead or alive. That's not the case. Those are the two states of existence in this world. Okay? God is telling us in heaven, in paradise, people are going to have eternal life. But in hell, they're neither dead or alive. There's some other kind of existence which is very miserable, and God warns us about this. That we have to be very careful. Now, surely success belongs to the one who gives the cleansing charity. God mentions this 28 times, zakat. Zakat means to cleanse it. Okay? The money that you are making, if you don't give the zakat, is not clean. You have to make sure that the zakat is given. So God says success belongs to the one who gives the cleansing charity and commemorates the name of his Lord and observes the contact prayer. Okay, remember, the most important thing during the contact prayer is commemoration of God. Some people have already canceled that. We think about God all the time. We pray to God all the time. All these excuses, one after another, after another, after another. Okay, why should we do it this way? What does it say to do it this way? Let's not just do it. We have other things to do. Okay? Now, remember how much I said this whole chapter started, glorify constantly the name of your Lord, be exalted. Now he says, commemorate the name of his Lord. Again, if you don't do that, you are going to fall into these traps. These traps of idol worship, putting these guy or that guy on a pedestal. Okay? They never got sick. Okay? They were all Superman. They look really beautiful. They were more handsome than anybody else that we can think of. That's what we do. And then before you know it, we become a practice idol worship. So this is what we have to do. We have to illuminate our minds with commemoration of God. we glorify. The rest of the stuff is irrelevant, but it's going to fall into place. And God says, yes, you prefer this worldly life. Okay? This is you, is plural. The rest of them are all singular that I read so far. That you prefer this worldly life. People prefer this worldly life. Why? The hereafter is far better than everlasting. Yeah, because they don't believe that. They think that this life is it. And as far as the hereafter is concerned, maybe there's something there, maybe there isn't. Okay, so we can't take a chance. Okay. But God tells us otherwise. It's just it's a different way. As I said, when you read that, it says God says that He is bringing out the pasture, but the pasture is going to go dark leaves. It will turn dark leaves, and it's going to die. And that's what He tells us. That this is a temporary existence. This is how He designed it. It wasn't meant to be any different. That's why He says, while the hereafter is far better and everlasting. Okay? So, what is this stuff? Indeed, this is so recorded in the ancient scrolls. The scrolls of Abraham and Moses. Well, we don't like the Old Testament. It's full of mistakes. Why do you refer to the Old Testament so much? That's what God is telling us. Okay? The Code of Hammurabi is from the time of Abraham. An eye for an eye is from the time of Abraham. God is telling us the same thing in the Quran. But how dare you referring to that one? Because I don't like it, because I'm prejudiced against this group of people. That's what they are telling me, basically. It doesn't matter. Okay? The scroll of Abraham and Moses. Abraham lived 4,500 years ago. Moses lived 3,500 years ago. Okay? They're all gone. But those scrolls were inspired to them by God. And they had to tell people about it. They had to tell people, thou shalt not kill. They had to tell people, thou shalt not steal. And if you do these things, you are going to pay. Because you are disturbing the balance that God has created, and then you have to pay. And there is no other way. So as I said, a very short chapter, very short verses. But He tells us. God tells us. Some of these verses, as I said, are heavy for some people to digest. Okay? Because of a lot of things in their hearts. They don't like it. But again, if you do not go along with these verses, what happens is we are going to be graduating into really full-fledged idol worshippers that enjoys putting people on a pedestal and basically put a partner for God. Because this guy, somehow, he was very special. So if I just rub shoulder with this guy, maybe our arms are going to get someplace too. Maybe I should do that. Okay? And that becomes somebody who is actually says, no, partner for God, that somehow this guy has some kind of special power that the rest of the groups don't have. And God says He doesn't. Okay? And by definition, that's called idol worship. We are making an idol out of a person, out of God's servant. And that is lack of commemoration of God, because we don't do that. We get stuck in these frivolous stuff. And Quran becomes extremely hard to understand. We don't understand the Quran anymore. And then before you know it, we'll be just joining the rest of the crowd. And that would be it. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and we'll finish it like that. سبحان ربي العظيم الله الكبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير الله الكبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين الصراط المستقيم الله close this one here and another one. Now I want to talk to you about 341st prime number. Okay, and these are see how God keeps stressing on the truth and how he abhors falsehood. The 341st prime number is 2293, but why choose 341? Here's why. 341 is a biprime and it's 11 times 31. Okay? And however, 1131st prime is 9127. Okay, so that's why we chose this. And we therefore correlate 341 with the fact that chapter 9 has 127 verses. That's always the case. So every time you see 341, that immediately correlates the fact that chapter 9 has 127 verses. Okay. Now let us study the prime number 2293, because now remember now, 341 is the index of prime number 2293. Okay. The following table is again points to 9127. There we go here. And index of Gaussian composite is 1143. Index of the prime is 2293. And this 20297 is a prime and it's also a Gaussian composite. The index of Gaussian composite is 1143 and the index of prime is 2293. But remember now, 2293 actually was the 341st prime number. Okay? So we'll just look at these two numbers here, and these are called interdextral relations. So we go here, look at the interdextral relation in the above table. We see that 341st, which is 2293, lines up with 1143, and we have 1143 is equal to 9 times 127. Okay. So again, two ways that you get again to 9127 with 341. Okay. There is no escape from this. There is no escape. And again, God abhors falsehood. Recall that 1143rd composite is 1362, which is the number of verses from 11 to 9127. Okay, so no matter how you look at this, how you slice this, it goes back to 9127. Okay, these are God's signs that we see almost every week. Almost every week. And again, if you don't pay attention to this, God will take it away and give it to somebody else, another group of people. Almost every week we see this. Okay. So again, as I said, we learn about this little by little, and when the time is right, God reveals it. Otherwise, if it's not the time, then God will not reveal it. Because again, He tells us that if He reveals it to you, it will be harmful to you. he does it according to his time, according to his wisdom, according to his knowledge, okay, at the right time. Because remember now, God does not live in time. That's such a huge mistake that people make. God created time for us. We live in time, not God. God knows that. God already knows. Okay? Remember how many times we went through this? We had the night of Kaalam. Okay? He saw him in another descent. Who is this? Is this Muhammad saw God or God saw Muhammad? Does God have to do that to see Muhammad? You have to ask this question from yourself. Does God have to take Muhammad over there and come down to see Muhammad? He can't see him when Muhammad is here. It's Muhammad who sees God. Again, that becomes completely nonsense to us because we can't understand it because we think of something else. We are actually demeaning God when we say that. God manifests himself to Muhammad, the soul, not Muhammad, the body.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay? He did not go to Jerusalem and jump on a horse which goes at the speed of light. That's a popular thing. Okay, if he went and do that, he would be still in the Orion belt of our galaxy, somewhere in there. Okay? The Darmstadt galaxy, our galaxy is about probably 150,000 light years. 1,000 years ago, that's what he would have did. Someone in the Orion belt. Lost and he didn't know which way to go. On a horse. And this is the knowledge that comes from those people. And some people still think those guys are okay. And follow them too. What about those guys? Who cares? That's the knowledge that comes from those guys. Anyway, so when we see this, okay, again, these are signs that comes from God almost every week. Okay? And he shows us. Shows us his power. And then that's how he explains the Quran to us. Otherwise we'll be completely confused the rest of it. Okay, for several reasons. One reason that we reject these things, we don't care. They've always seen this stuff. And another thing is that we are not commenting on because we're frivolous stuff. We follow those stuff. I try to figure it out, and then we get confused, and that's it. Well, who cares? We can do that. We should go do something. You know, if idol worship is not very difficult to fall into. And before you know it, you're gone. Okay? So, extra careful. Ask God to help you. Remember God frequently. Do not miss your contact prayers. Do not take these signs lightly. That's the only way to succeed. So I'm going to stop here and we'll finish on Juma. Allah Kabir, Subhan Rabbi al-Azim, Allah Kabir. سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير الله سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم الله سبحان ربي العظيم الله الكبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله الكبير بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن والصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم سبحان الله كبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الله كبير سبحان ربي الأعلى الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم. Anyone, brother?
Thank you very much. Goodbye.